All right, brother. What's going on?
Hey, what's going on, bro?
You here? There we go. I think it might be just us today. So
Oh, okay.
yeah. So how's everything been going?
It's been going, man. It's been busy, brother. Got some
Yeah.
got some stuff coming up tomorrow. We have a meeting. There's it's interesting just the opportunities that you can get here in Belgium. There's a organization here that if you have like a possible venture that you want to pitch, they'll kind of hear you out, almost like a kind of like a Shark Tank thing, but it's actually funded by policies here with the government and also like banks and stuff. So they try to help launch new ventures and new entrepreneurial endeavors here to kind of just bring more innovation to the to the community. So we got a presentation we're going to be giving tomorrow to see if they'll bite on it and go from there. So I've been doing a lot of work in preparation for that, and also getting ready for the he make the healing decision challenge coming up at the first of the month.
Okay.
So
What's
so
that going to be about? The healing decision.
well, it's about making a healing decision in areas of your health, your relationships, and how you're contributing in the world. And most people, unfortunately, especially entrepreneurs, have difficulty making decisions. And one of the reasons, and one of the reasons why we have this difficulty making decisions is because we see so many opportunities. So, and an issue will be we'll start in one lane and then hit an obstacle or come up on a challenge. Then we go look for a solution, and then oh, we see something else. Oh, this is even better. You drop what you're doing and you go here, and you get on this cycle of just constantly shifting from one thing to the next and not really getting anything done. But when you make a decision on something, you actually cut off all other possibilities. The word decision in and of itself means to cut away or cut off. And
Right.
so there are no other choices then. And so what we're inviting people to do is to make a healing decision in their lives so they can make more health for themselves, make more love in their relationships, and make more money. But
Right.
it comes down to making that decision.
Yeah. And that's I see it all the time.
Mm.
People come to me, hey, I want help starting a business or doing something. Well, I always say, well, what do you have right now
Yeah.
that you can put in front of everybody? Oh, I have
Exactly.
this. Well, I said, well, put it out there. Just put it out there. The customers will tell you what you need to fix.
Mm. Yeah.
But too many times people want it perfect before they get
Hmm.
started. Like,
Yeah.
um, I was just talking to I wasn't talking. Beth was talking to her brother the other
Mm.
day, and he started a channel a few months ago. And his first show, I liked it. It was raw, he seemed authentic. And he was just talking getting your affairs in order through trust. And but he came and he took it down
Interesting.
because he said he wanted to perfect it. He wanted to do, he wanted to be precise. And I'm like, saying in the back of my mind, he's never gonna do that channel.
Yeah.
Because there's no such thing.
As perfecting it, because you actually perfect it through your becoming
Right. And while you're doing it.
while you're doing it, and that's
Yeah.
how you perfect it through the action. And one thing I realized, man, when it comes to making those kind of decisions, it require a decision by definition will require action.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
You can't
Don't
just sit there.
make
Oh, I've decided something, but there is no action that follows to reflect that decision being made on
right.
what you've decided. So,
Right.
yeah, yeah,
It's he wanted perfect. Then what I think what really happened, someone said to him that he need to work on pronouncing his words better.
mm,
I was like, yeah, I told her to give me the phone because I got on there, and I was like, well, whoever told you that, tell them to kiss you know what.
yeah, seriously. And
Like,
even that, even in him perfecting his pronunciation, the best way to do that is through practice.
right.
So,
I
what
mean,
better way to do that than get yourself out there in a public forum
my
and begin to
battery
speak?
jumped on.
Yeah.
Let me
So,
get this camera right. Uh, Yeah. There you go.
Hey, what's up, brother?
Peace.
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Peace.
Yeah, you know, I was like, you know, for someone to say that to someone, you know, that's hate speech to me. I need to do better in my pronouncing words. I know I don't pronounce my words perfectly all the time. And tell you the truth, I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to be me.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, we grew up in our world, we are pronouncing our words correctly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in other people's world, that we're not. But that's you know, I'm not trying to be someone I'm not, you know.
Exactly. You're not here for them. And that's the thing about it. Like for another good case in point on that. So here, obviously, when I'm speaking with people here, where they, you know, I would say 99% of the people here, English is not their first language.
Right.
And so when they're speaking with me and they'll say something that may not be the appropriate word or something that may be out of context because they're trying to pull, you know, the meaning of something in and us have the dialogue, you know, I'm not tripping about it.
No.
Because it's
as long as you understand what they're saying.
Yeah, as long as I can understand what they're saying and what they're trying to get across to me, I'm not going to trip about that. And the thing is, like you were saying, man, it's like in my world, being a native English speaker from you know, America, yeah, I have a better grasp of the language than someone who this is a second or third language to them.
Right.
And even within our culture, our community within America, we have our own dialect, we have our own way of saying things, and somebody from another area or part of the United States will be like, well, that's not correct. But in our world, that is correct. And we have a clear understanding of what's being communicated, what the meaning is behind it, and we understand whatever references that are also being imparted from that communication. So,
you know,
it's all relative.
Have dialects across the world pretty much, you know.
Exactly.
In Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn has a different dialect than Edenwald Projects in the Bronx, which is they're both New York cities, and in Queens. And then you leave New York and you go to New Jersey, they got a different dialect. And you come down south, that's a different dialect.
Different dialect, exactly.
From Columbia, South Carolina to Charleston, South Carolina, that's a different dialect.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like all over. We have a different dialect and, you know, pronouncing words. Long as you're communicating and people can understand it. And one thing I know about being on the platform like YouTube and other social media, people are so inundated with fake people. There are people out there looking for someone real, and they don't care how you pronounce the words, they just want to see if you're authentic. There's a reason why people like Mike Tyson. You know, despite all the drama he went through, they still like him. Why? Because he's not trying to change up the way he talk. And he's real when he talk. You ever see him watch him speak? He's real, you know. You know, I used to be like that voice coming out of the guy that big, you know, but at the same time, when I've watched him mature, and when he talks real.
He does.
And he doesn't pronounce his words perfectly, you know, but I understand where he's coming from. What I understand is the spirit of Mike Tyson. Not so much the pronunciation and him using words. And that's what I was trying to convey. Say, listen, your channel would do great. You know, what he was talking about, he was really raw in his speech, but it was facts he was talking about. And that's like, listen, I like what you're doing. It's original. It is no one else is out there pretty much doing it like you're doing it. Keep it going. But it's so hard to when someone comes to you and says to you, especially if someone you care about says to you, "Oh, you need to do this," it makes you doubt yourself, and that goes, you know, you just got to look within himself and know that he got the skills.
That's an issue of identity. Him not being clear about who he is. Because
I would agree with that. I'm agree 100%. I've gotten caught up in that younger when someone said to me, you know, I had someone willing to teach me how to DJ, and he worked for 98.7 KISS in New York.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he was a, you know, DJ there. And he was like, I'll teach you how to do what I'm doing. I went home, told my parents, my brother, they all made jokes of me because, they were very religious. And that wasn't what I was supposed to be working to give out magazines and for the organization, not try to be a DJ. And I let that discourage me. I let it, okay, maybe I'm wrong. God doesn't want me to do this. But look, here I am circling back. I'm on doing YouTube channels, not DJing for a radio station, but I'm influencing people through a YouTube channel. So I came back to it in some way, being in the public eye.
Yeah, so.
So I got in. We just started talking, but I think today's topic is about our health. What are we doing to keep our health up? Why is it important? So I'm gonna let you start out, man. I mean, not Mahdi, because you're the doctor in the room.
I was about to say, I ain't the doctor.
You're the doctor. You got the credentials.
Yeah. So I would say starting out, man, like the first thing I think is very important that I constantly have to keep myself just updated on is making sure I'm taking care of the 4 elimination pathways of detoxification for my body. So there's our body and our nervous system regulates our healing and our capacity for regeneration and repair through elimination toxins from our system. So for me, those 4 elimination pathways are our breath, making sure you're breathing properly every day. You're doing some breath work, meditation, some breathing going on. Also, through sweating, through our skin. That's another detoxification organ. And people don't realize that the skin actually is an organ. It's the largest organ of the body. And the health of the skin, when you start looking at your skin and examining your skin, it can tell you a lot about how well you're doing internally. And so if you're noticing a lot of blemishes and things like that, one way to begin to help the body clear in addition to the breathing is through sweating. And so the best way to start sweating is to move the body. And I always tell folks, the body only has one purpose and one purpose only, and that's to keep you moving. It's your vehicle that's designed to move upon this planet Earth. And when you're not moving it, it starts to break down because it's not able to fulfill this purpose. So you got breathing, moving, and then the major other 2 that we do, I hope every day, is urination, peeing, going to the bathroom and taking a pee, and then defecation, going to the bathroom and having a bowel movement. And so normally when I'm working with someone, man, one of the first things I ask them specifically, because I know more than likely they're going to go and urinate, they're going to go have a pee throughout the day. So they're going to have multiple times they're going to go and urinate. The one thing that I find quite fascinating with folks is a lot of them are not defecating. They're not having a bowel movement.
Yeah.
And so when you wake up in the morning, you automatically get up and you go to the bathroom to urinate. You should also be defecating, having a bowel movement. If you're not having a bowel movement upon awakening in the morning, what that tells me is that you're constipated. And not only are you constipated, your body is reabsorbing the toxins and basically feeding off the toxins that are in your intestines that should be leaving your body. Those toxins are being reabsorbed and you're basically feeding off your own waste. And so when you're asleep at night, that's when the body's going through regeneration and healing. It's repairing damaged cells that have died, that have kind of had their lifespan and are now being moved through the lymphatic system to the spleen to be processed and broken down and eliminated through the bloodstream, through urination and more so defecation. All that stuff is happening. Food waste and toxins are being eliminated. All that stuff is happening while you're sleeping. So when you wake up in the morning, within the first 2 hours upon awakening, you should have a bowel movement. If you're not, then yeah, we need to look at what's going on with your diet. And then again, also moving the body actually helps stimulate, peristalsis and stimulates the body's ability to have bowel movement. So those are things that I try to make sure on a daily basis that I'm doing, that
Yes,
I'm
that's
breathing, sweating, making sure I'm urinating, making sure I'm defecating. So I got those 3 things going on, and I mean those 4 things going on. That is like my baseline assessment for me to make sure that my body is in a process of healing. Because if I'm not doing all 3 of those things, toxins are building up into the tissues, and then that can lead to chronic illness and imbalances, and then you end up with some crazy disease down the road.
right. Now, how many times do you recommend defecating per day?
I typically recommend at least 2 times a day, 2 to 3 times a day.
Okay.
And so, I kind of base it like this, to be honest with you. The number of meals I have a day, that's how many times I should
That's how many
defecate.
times you should be going. Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I've dealt with folks who are like, oh, I go once a week, once every 2 weeks. And like, seriously, this is like, wow. And it's like, to me, it's like almost mind blowing. But yeah, you will have these folks who will do that. Yeah. Say again.
People that don't defecate often, notice the personality.
Oh, facts. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So check it. So, as within, so without.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are holding onto your toxins and you're constipated, these people will have issues letting things go within their personality. They hold on to things, they hold grudges. Also because of the toxicity and the acidity, that them not being able to remove toxins in a very free fashion from the body, they have more of a acidic and corrosive type personality. They're quick to react, quick to get angry, quick to just jump off the handle, trip, and they got a very negative perspective about life. Mm-hmm. And so as you start cleaning up the body temple, going through detoxification and cleansing, what'll happen initially is your mood will actually become worse, because what's happening, you're getting the toxins that are actually stored in the fat tissue are now entering back into the bloodstream to be filtered through the liver and the kidneys, to be eliminated through your urine, eliminated through your feces. But once you clear those things, you start to see the personality become more agreeable, more flexible. The person has a positive more attitude about life, about themselves. And I've seen it over and over again as we start to alkalize the body, remove toxins, and build up the vitality and the overall health of the body temple. Mm-hmm. The consciousness occupying that space starts to vibrate at a higher level.
Right. Yeah. That's going to the bathroom, especially that one in the morning. Mm-hmm. It's important to have it a day.
Yeah.
And you, like you said, you got all your lymphatic system. Everything's got to dump out. And if you're not, the body is just going to start storing it in places until you do dump it out. And that's when you start getting what you call chronic diseases, cancer, and all that starts setting in, because the body is holding on to toxins. I know for a fact that if people just drink more water and eliminate more, they can actually start losing weight just doing that.
Absolutely. You cannot lose weight dehydrated. Mm-hmm. It's not biologically possible for you to lose weight when you're dehydrated. The body is about roughly 70% water in its composition. Some organs are over 90% water in their composition. And so if you're not utilizing this balancing fluid, this cleansing fluid that is water, that makes up who you are, if you're not consistently replenishing that, those toxins build up. So a perfect example would be this. We can use a river as an analogy. Okay. If a river becomes stagnant and is dammed off or blocked up and it can't flow, what starts to happen inside that river?
Starts to get polluted.
Starts to get polluted. Trash starts to build up. Also, parasites, bacteria, all these things start to fester and build because it's supposed to be flowing. It's the same thing with us. We should be hydrating ourselves every single day. So I go basically through a couple of liters of water, and I always add cranberry juice to my water as well, because it really helps support the kidneys and supports the blood. So I go through at least 2 of these a day to try to just keep myself well hydrated and flush. And another thing too, if you're keeping yourself well hydrated, one of the easiest things to reduce the aging process is water. And so when you're consuming enough water, your skin is not going to be breaking down this collagen as readily. The
Right.
elasticity of the skin will be much more intact than someone who's dehydrated. So if you're constantly dehydrated, getting out in sun exposure, especially for folks who are more fair and they get themselves out there in the sun and they're not hydrated, they're going to start aging more rapidly. And so consuming water and keeping the body well hydrated reduces the aging process as well.
Yeah. I know when I hydrate, I can think better. I know when you're drinking a lot and you're trying to keep your body, you know when you're dehydrated without even being thirsty.
Absolutely.
Because you start, exhibiting signs. Okay, I need to drink some more water.
Yeah. What's deep? There's a book. It's called "The Body's Many Cries for Water." I can't remember the doctor who wrote it, but I think the brother was he was from Iran, the physician who did it, and he was actually in a concentration camp, a prison camp, and they wouldn't allow him to treat the people with medications or what he was skilled to do. So all he had at his disposal was water. And the things that he started observing as he was giving these people the water, and that's pretty much allowed them all they could have, just the extraordinary recovery and healings that were taking place within this prison camp for people who were diagnosed with things that otherwise you would say, okay, all we can do is manage. At best, is no cure for it. These people were actually resolving and curing these things. And when I was actually in medical school in my 4th year, I did a rotation up in Northern California at a medical facility where we do supervised medical water fast. And I saw, like, for example, type 2 diabetes resolve within a week and a half. I saw autoimmune conditions like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis resolving in like a matter of 2-3 weeks. And these are things that you're told that's just from water, just drinking water, medically supervised fast of them just on water, and the results were just extraordinary. How the body began to recover, and so that's when the light bulb went off for me. That as a doctor, I can't cure you of anything.
Right.
That's when I realized that the power that created this body heals this body. And the best thing I can do is guide and facilitate that, or even teach you how to do it for yourself, which is even better. And so when you start doing the things that are in alignment with natural law, when you're honoring natural law and you're living in accordance with the divine laws through which this plane that we're on and we're existing on are governed, your body will align itself and heal itself of almost anything, unless it's been so beaten down to the point where the energy and the magnetic hold of the body cannot hold the spirit any longer and it has to let it go. Because it's just too weak. But for most situations, you can see yourself recover from extraordinary amounts of things that conventional medicine would tell you at best you can manage.
Like conventional medicine says they can't cure a lot of things, but I've seen stuff cured in natural healing processes that they said that could.
Yeah.
So like HIV, things like that, and lupus. What's the other thing? Something else that they said that couldn't be cured. Even diabetes.
Yeah, diabetes. Yeah.
Right.
And I've seen it with type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is autoimmune, where they're insulin dependent because they're not able to produce the pancreas. Is not able to produce it because the immune system is in essence attacking the beta cells of the pancreas, so it cannot produce insulin. So they're insulin dependent. And one of my good friends and colleague, he's also a naturopathic medical doctor, Kurt. Kurt actually reversed his type 1 diabetes through nutrition and through drinking water, through eating completely raw, a raw plant-based diet, and getting all the nutrient density from that. Completely allowed his body to regenerate. And that's another thing too about living foods. When you start putting living foods into the body will respond in kind. I have an easy equation that I like to tell folks. Life begets life. You put more life into the body, you get more life out of it. You start putting things that are dead into the body, processed, and no life in it, that takes away the life and vital force of the body. So when you start integrating more living foods into it, you can reverse things there. And I, at that place where I did that rotation, there was a high-powered lawyer from Boston who had 14% kidney function left. So we couldn't fast him because a fast would have killed him. It'd have been too much damage to his kidneys to fast him on water. So all he did, the diet that we were offering all the patients who were there, it was completely plant-based, 100% organic, and there were no added salt, no added sugar, no added oils. How it came from the earth is how you consumed it, with some herbs and spices. And so the lawyer was only eating this food every day and drinking fresh juices, like vegetable and fruit juices. Within 2.5 months, he went from a stent. He already had a stent in his arm for dialysis, and he was on a kidney transplant list. In 2.5 months, he went from 14% kidney function to fully regenerating his kidneys. No need for transplant, no need for dialysis. In 2.5 months, where the doctor's like, if you don't get a transplant within the next 6 months, you're going to be dead. His body completely recovered and regenerated in 2.5 months. So he didn't need any of that stuff anymore. And that was just on him eating completely plant-based living foods and just drinking juice every day.
Right.
And reducing and not being in a stressful environment, because he was at our facility. So he wasn't worried about his cases there in Boston and all the stress he had on him. He lost over 40 pounds of weight while he was there. He stayed there for 2.5 months. And it was just extraordinary, the results that he had. And so I was seeing those kind of things take place, man. And I was just like, wow, okay. I need to reframe how I'm looking at working with folks going forward.
Now, how come we don't hear about this on the news? These type.
Well, I got two words for you.
I'm just
we already know. Yeah.
Question I already know the answer to. I already know.
Yeah, that was rhetorical right there.
Yeah,
I was going to mention the stress part of it, because I was going to say how important. It doesn't matter what you're doing with yourself and how you're doing it. If you're in a stressful environment, your body is stressed, you're negating everything you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was always joking with my holistic nutrition students, man. It's a perfect point I met with folks. I said, you can have the most pristine, prayed over by monks all over the world, grown in the most nutrient-dense soils that you can imagine. All the vegetables were massaged and prayed over and spoken into, and you got this high vibrational meal in front of you. And if you come to that meal all angry, hostile, just negative, and you start taking that food and you, in essence, start turning all of that richness and goodness into toxicity. Mm-hmm. Your body will not be able to absorb it properly, break it down properly, assimilate it properly, and it'll just sit within your system and begin to putrefy and create more toxins than all the good that it can be taken out of it, because you've come to that meal in this fight or flight state. So all the blood flow is not going to the digestive organs to digest, assimilate, and absorb these nutrients. All your blood flows in your extremities into your brain, dealing with the stress that you are under in that moment. And so I always remember, man, growing up, and you brothers can probably speak to this as well. Like, my grandmother was adamant about blessing our food before we ate. Mm-hmm. Get still, get quiet, and thank God for this meal you're about to receive. And, coming up, you're like, man, I'm hungry. I just want to get in here and get down to business. Yeah. But like, nah, you weren't going to touch one bite until grace was said. And you bowed your head and you got quiet. As I became older and an adult and going through medical school, there's some science in that. When you humble yourself and you are thankful and you're coming from a place of gratitude and thanksgiving, you're now in a parasympathetic state to receive this food and do the most with it when you're in that state. So when it was time to just be still and give thanks to the Most High and honor the divine and all hands that have gone into preparation of this meal, that in and of itself begins to set the frequency and tone for the body to receive. And in that tone, it has a capacity to absorb the greatest amount of nutrients and do the best with that food that you've just given yourself.
Yeah, that's Yeah, I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, I'm about to say that's a different
Your
perspective.
prayer
Yeah,
was a chore,
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You
That I kind of took out of them. I don't even do it. So I mean, that's a
yeah.
different perspective there. I got to look at that
Well, they
differently.
never really explained it to us, but it makes sense
And they
because
probably didn't know. It was just
you know,
tradition.
It's just tradition, but the
it's just
science was there, man. The
yeah.
science was there.
Said
Yeah.
it's better to give than it is to receive. Giving thanks.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could see that. From a vibrational level, I could see that. Yeah, that
Hmm.
if you go in anything with the spirit of being thankful, you're gonna have better results.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because you're now open to receive.
right.
You're literally energetically and physiologically, biochemically open to receive.
I can tell you with certainty when I go into my meditations and I go and start off with being thankful instead of asking to receive stuff, I get more out of that than just being thankful for what I already have, you know.
Yeah.
And that's I make a ritual of that, just being thankful, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I need to do that without food.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, like, and it's something we do in our household now, man. It's like it's just part of our daily ritual for dinner. Especially because that's that last meal of the day,
Mm,
and so we want to basically be able to, really be able to absorb and receive those nutrients that will sustain us over the course of the night as we rest, and our body's repairing, regenerating, and detoxifying. So it has those metabolic reserves of nutrients readily available now to work its magic over the course of that time while we're sleeping.
mhm.
And so that dinner, that evening meal, man, we always come to the dinner table together as a family, and as we break bread, before we break bread, we give thanks. And in the process of doing that, again, I said it sets up the vibration from a physiological and biochemical standpoint, where you're now in what we call that ventral parasympathetic state. All the blood is there within the digestive organs waiting to receive that nourishment so it can
Mm.
start doing the work on it in the most efficient way that it can.
Now, with that, I think we as men should start taking the lead personally in our homes
It's
doing that.
funny you say that because I was just thinking the same thing.
We
Well,
should
You know,
brother,
we
yeah,
get back
brothers,
to that because
yeah.
when we did it as a kid, even though it was a chore and it was like, oh, here we go, because some people just took too long doing their prayers. We all young and guys taking 5 minutes to say a
Mhm.
prayer, but I know we had better family camaraderie when we did that.
Yeah.
We all just
Yeah.
doing that ritual right before a meal, especially when you're in group settings.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, it was interesting, man. And what was really, I'm really grateful. My partner, she requested
hmm
that, and she's like, it was important to her, and what was very important to her was that I was leading
hmm
this example for the family.
and that's
And
that's that's
yeah,
that's it right there.
yeah,
We don't
and
see that anymore. We don't see men
mm-mm,
doing that anymore.
mm-mm,
It's not, and it's almost like it's not even expected, you
yeah,
know. But I
yeah,
think, and I kind of shied away from it because I grew up with that all my life, and
mhm,
I connected to my experiences being a Jehovah's Witness, but I can disconnect that and just concentrate on doing that as the man of
mhm,
the house, leading in prayer and showing people how to be thankful,
absolutely.
for what we have, for our health.
Mhm.
We talk about this thing with our family. Hey, we need to do this and do that, but are we showing our family what we need to do by our own examples? It's
Precisely.
easy to point out what you need to do. Hey, this is how we do it. No, I think we'll get better results as men in our homes if we just being the example of what we say we're talking about.
Yeah, and that's what we're designed to be, and we've actually walked away from our role, our assignment.
And that's why we got problems. Right now. That's why we
Yeah.
having problems with the women because we're not in our assignment. Because I really believe if we're on our mission and doing how we are supposed to be as men, everything else falls into place. I think I know I'm just speaking for myself. I'm looking for someone to get in play, get in position with me. But am I in position? You know, am I in the right position? How do I know? I got to examine that. And if I concentrate on that, then everybody's just going to just follow. they're going to see that example, you know?
That's where I came with when I said on the first show about being on the train
Hmm.
and going down
Mm.
that track and moving the way I'm moving, because I had to come to the realization that y'all speaking of right now. That it was very easy for me to say you need to do this, and that. But when I have conversations with a lot of people, family, whatever, I always tell them, I noticed that you always look at external as opposed to internal. So when I speak to someone, I speak it to myself as well. So I go back and always reflect on the conversation I have, even off the conversations I have with one of your brothers, even on this show, I go back and I reflect on it, and I see how that conversation fits in my spirit and what I need to do. So what I did was basically what Hakeem was saying, is that I need to do more than just point the finger and say, do this. So because I was getting a lot of pushback from him, but I noticed that the pushback is different. It's still some, but it's not the same when I'm doing it. So I'm not going to ask someone to do something that I'm not willing to do myself.
Yeah, I agree with that. When you're actually doing it and you being the example, you're going to get way more results and less aggravation, less headache.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
where's the headache coming from? The headache comes from because you're trying to get someone to do something and you feel like they're not agreeing with you and following you. So the frustration is really coming from within because you're trying to change someone else without changing yourself.
Yeah.
So I think this is a great conversation. Come on, because when you brought up the whole prayer before meals, and I it just hit me. That's very important, and that's because that's showing just not just praying and just we all know we've been in those prayers where they were empty prayers, right? But a prayer, like you said, of thanksgiving, being thankful for what we have. I think a reason why a lot of our children are not thankful and our families are not thankful because we're not showing them how to be thankful, what to be thankful for. We're not even saying, we're just, hey, you should be thankful. Okay, why am I thankful? Because you bought me this. What for? What is this? We're expecting them to just know when they don't know.
The question is, do we even know how to be thankful ourselves?
Right. Yeah.
Right. Right.
But one thing I learned is that
we have to learn.
You can't expect someone to do something that they're not either capable of doing or not willing to do. And it's actually unloving to try to get a person to do something they're not capable of
or
doing
even
or not
an
willing to do.
example of how to do it. I think that's the challenge. We got to hold ourselves accountable there.
But see, being alpha men, sometimes we get stuck in this mode. And I'm not saying, and don't get me twisted, we don't come out of that alpha men state now. I don't want everybody else, see, you're sensitive, so I don't get into all that. You know what I'm saying? But sometimes we get stuck in this alpha mode and we're so rigid that we don't see that even that rigidness needs to have some type of offset. I don't know if I'm saying the right word or whatever, but I'm not saying compromise who you are and your role and what you're supposed to be as that alpha male. We never come out of that, because once you step out of that, you're out of your role, period.
Right.
So, but we have to see that we may have to approach it differently, not necessarily say it differently, but we may have to approach it differently.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that alpha role, Ahmed, that you're speaking about has to be tapered with discernment and wisdom.
There you go.
And compassion.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. That compassion. And so when we have that level of discernment, wisdom, and compassion in that role that we're in, we're able to then, guide our families and those we're in leadership over in a much more efficient and effective way. And they'll be glad to follow our lead, because we're coming with that strength that we've been endowed with as men. And we have the discernment, the wisdom, and the compassion to lead from those qualities, from those traits. And in doing so, I've found within myself and engaging with other folk that they're far more inclined to be receptive to what it is that I'm trying to say, where I'm trying to lead, and what I'm trying to build. And when I come out that ego, like you said, and I'm just so rigid, and it's like, no, it's like my way or the highway kind of mindset, then yeah, I think we can get in trouble.
Right. Now, alpha, okay, that means dominant, being the dominant, the leader. So, okay, what are you going to be dominant in? Right? Hold on. Wait till Marty get back.
Okay.
What are you going to be dominant in? Because alpha is just alpha, right? But we get to define how you're going to be an alpha. Are you going to be dominant in being the loving one in the relationship, the compassionate, having the wisdom, and taking the lead in all of the positive things? See, a lot of times people take that alpha and they're negative with it. Yeah, I'm the man, and you got to just do what I say, and that's it. That's a negative way of doing things. It's you can be the man, and pretty much people will follow you, but you have to do it like you say. You have to be balanced in your wisdom, compassion, understanding, and just using proper discernment.
Indeed.
Being an alpha doesn't mean that you go around sticking your chest out.
Yeah.
You're right. I'm glad you cleared that up, because I know some people would have looked at that as you thinking one way. But also, what I think people might be listening to this show and say, "Well, I thought we was talking about health," and don't realize that what we're speaking about is all encompassed of that. Yeah,
that
exactly.
is a profound ingredient to that which is health.
Exactly. And wanting your family to follow you in the path that you take in keeping yourself healthy, because it's so easy to fall into the things that are done commonly in the family that they may have came up with, and just follow suit because we ain't taught the things that we're doing now and overstanding now. We wasn't taught these things. I mean, I'll tell you one thing for me is that my mom was never really into a lot of stuff. I mean, she didn't go to doctors. She didn't believe in doctors. So we got what's crazy is that we rebelled against her and then come back later and be like, damn, now I understand what you was talking about. Now I get it,
See, why did you rebel against her? Where were you getting your education from?
Exactly. I was getting it from outside of her, because that school system,
right?
That those other people that you gave authority over, the ones that should have authority over you.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
We create our enemies through letting our children be educated by a system.
Oh, 100%.
That's not that they're not educating them to support us as a family and build wealth within our family. They're educating them to build wealth for a system.
Exactly.
That's what our kids are being educated. Once I got that realization that that's what's happening there, I was like, wait a minute, we're sending our children out there to become enemies to their own home.
I had a discussion with my daughter's teacher the other day, because she said to me, it's a little off topic, but not off topic because it comes back to it. She said to me, "Oh, I need to talk to you because your daughter's not following directions." I said, "Okay, what do you mean?" "Well, she's not following directions." "Okay, what do you mean?" Right? Because you're telling me not following directions means a broad spectrum. She's not doing anything right. So what do you mean by she's not following directions? So she gave me an example about not putting a sweater in a bag, and gave me an example of how, you bring your child to me for 6 to 8 hours. I got to make sure she come back. That whole rigmarole that people like to fall into, like they're having a great conversation. So she finally brought up what the real issue was. My daughter, the reason why I allow my daughter to go back to school, they got to wear the mask in New York, right? But my daughter understands the stupidness of the mask. Believe me. So she's always taking the mask down. And she started challenging the teacher with it, but she always taking the mask down. So she said, "Well, she doesn't take the mask down because the mask is to keep me." So I said, "Who? Keep who safe?" "Well, you could come close because I don't have COVID." I said, "Well, let me explain something to you." So I pointed out to all the teachers and stuff all the parents that was outside. I said, "Well, you have to understand, we don't participate in this." "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "We have a different understanding, a different view about what's going on. We don't participate, and I will not allow my child to be indoctrinated in this, because what y'all don't understand is the effect that y'all have mentally on them by sitting in the classroom with a mask on all day. That ain't doing it. That's not effective." I said, "It's not my issue." And this is a religious school. It's a Seventh-day Adventist school, believe it or not. So I said, "It's not my issue if y'all don't want to research and understand what's going on. And I'm in a religious school. Where's your faith? I'm saying you're supposed to have a faith. Where's your faith? But she's not supposed to be disruptive in your class." I said, "Well, my first question that I've always asked, was she disrespectful?" "No." "Okay. long as she ain't disrespectful, I could deal with anything else. Disrespect, then we got to handle it a different way. So I said, but what I need you to understand is that we're not coming from the perspective that you used to everybody else coming from. So if she needs a break, well, if she has a shield, she can get it. But I said, well, she's not going to sit in here like a space cadet either. So, that's just not going to happen.
It's crazy.
You know what I'm saying? So if she needs to take a break, she's going to take a break. But if there's anything else that she's being disruptive and not allowing the class to move forward, then that's something different. So my point to her was that we have a different understanding of how we're going to take care of our health. We understand what we need to do, and we're not going to just be indoctrinated just because. So if you're not going to research, it's a little bit of research too, what it is that you need to do to keep yourself protected. And I tell my children, and actually my 7-year-old daughter tell you now, what do you learn in school? She said, everything I learned in school is a lie. So, and she would tell you straight, just like everything I learned, and she understand that because they would tell her certain things, and I would come back and I would re-educate her on certain. And I told the teacher that. I said, y'all indoctrinated with certain things. I got to bring it back home and re-educate her on these things, because my main thing to that, I didn't say this to her, but my main thing to that is what we spoke about here, is that power. I would never, ever lose the power over my children to nobody, to no school or any other system, because all you're doing is spoon feeding, but you're not coming from a place of real genuine wanting to do right. Because even if you feel you are, real genuine to want to do right would really go out and get that research and get that knowledge to want to get, not just regurgitate what's been said.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, spitting talking points.
Oscar the mask. It says not for medical use. I mean, just that one sentence says it all. Okay. So let's get off that. They're cutting people off because they say stuff like that. But hey, man, let's keep it real. We know what it's all about with that. It's not really about health. It's about monetary gain. It's what it is. Let's call that animal exactly what it is. But unfortunately for us, we have people who believe it. That's their belief. But I'm not here to change their mind. I'm just going to walk the way I walk and deal with things.
Well, it kind of goes back to, bro, what they believe it because faith comes by hearing.
Right.
And what they've been hearing over and over and over and over again is that you're going to die from this. It's deadly. If you do not take the vaccination, you're not only costing your life, but you're costing me my life. And this has been the narrative. This has been push.
How is that true though?
But this is the thing. It doesn't matter if a lie is told long enough.
Over, people believe it.
Right.
People will believe it, regardless of what the story is. And we're just designed, man. That's why I really try to educate folks in saying, you, from a health standpoint, not only should you be cognizant of what you consciously put into your mouth and what goes into your body, but you have to be just as diligent and protective of what you allow to come into your mind and what you listen to.
Yes.
Because faith comes by hearing. And you will believe what you're told over and over and over again. And the greatest energy will always prevail. So if you got an energy out there in the world that's continuously professing something over and over again, and your consciousness is like, okay, no, that's not true. No, that's not true. But the subconscious is continuing to hear this over and over. It's going to break you down and rewire your neural pathways to say that's what it's for.
It's going to break down. You just start rationalizing, why you should do something, well, maybe, it's not so bad. But go ahead, Ahmed.
Yeah, I may cut you off, brother. Well, that same thought that you put out there, wouldn't you correlate that to also with the healing of anything in your body? If you're hearing that this cancer is going to kill you,
absolutely,
this cancer is going to do this cancer is going to do that. So you go in with the mindset that I got to just take these drugs because there's nothing they could do about it. So that same process, when you process that same stuff that's being said to you, it goes across the board, the whole spectrum. Would you say that as well?
Oh, absolutely. There's been cases.
So over a little bit.
There's been so many cases where someone would be misdiagnosed with a quote unquote dis-ease, and because they were misdiagnosed with this dis-ease, the body, from the mental standpoint, from the mindset and the belief created the dis-ease within the body, and then that person would succumb to it. And I'm trying to think of the case right now. There's one where the gentleman was actually diagnosed with cancer. He didn't have cancer, and they told him you have like 3 months or so to live. And because he believed the doctor so much, he died in 3 months. Did the autopsy, the man didn't have cancer. And so you will have things about that like that unfolding all the time. So we have it as, you know, you probably heard of the term placebo.
Right.
Placebo effect, yeah.
But you also have nocebos. So placebos are a positive outcome from belief. Nocebos are a negative outcome from belief.
Right.
So your belief in the situation, your belief in what is being told to you has a profound impact upon, you know, how your body will respond. And so if you are expecting your body not to respond in a healthy way, you don't trust the innate immune system that you've been given, you don't trust your nervous system as it's designed to regulate itself, you don't trust all the cells of your body to perform at a high vibrational level and carry out their function day in and day out, and you've been told this thing over here by this individual, and you bought into that fully, and you're fully committed to that,
you believe in that person,
your cells have no choice but to obey their father, which is your consciousness.
Right. Now, in your natural healing path, what you do, right? What is it a challenge when you have people that, you know, using traditional medical advice and you're taking them down another road, and does that interfere with their progress with you when they have this pill is the answer, and you know?
It can. And here's the thing. I'm not here to demify, you know, conventional medicine, because it has its purpose and its place. Like for example, if someone has an acute situation going on that we need to utilize a medication to get it under control. For example, if someone's going in anaphylactic shock,
right?
No herb I can go out there and grab the tree is going to mitigate that storm of histamine flooding the system and swelling and inflammation taking a hold of the body, where then they end up dying from it. So that EpiPen is going to be essential for us arresting that state and getting that under control. And then we can look in there and start looking at why the body is hypersensitive in this way, why the immune system responds in the hypersensitive, position when it comes to exposure to whatever they're being exposed to and they're getting an anaphylactic reaction from. Then we start going in and doing the work on the back end to help the body lessen that hypersensitivity reaction. And so medications can have their purpose. And so if I'm working with someone who is on a plethora of different medications, one thing I look at is, okay, what is not essential here? Because a lot of times these doctors throw the pills on you like they're throwing candy to you, and they start treating the side effects of one drug with another drug, and this compounds. And so we look at what's essential. And this is what I was being taught when I was in medical school at that fasting facility. Like, we would keep the patients on medications that they needed in order to survive.
Right.
So for example, like in the case of the high-powered lawyer, he came into us, he was on 9 different medications. We got him down to just the 4 that we needed to keep him on to keep his kidneys functioning and his heart functioning properly. And then we let the innate healing system within him, by honoring that system, by giving him the living foods, allowing him to rest and not stress about things anymore, feeding his mind daily with education about the power of his body and how it heals itself. So he was watching videos every day. We provided lectures there every day as well. Some doctor or expert would come in and give a lecture midday, right before lunch. And so he was getting all of this food mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And he was able to heal, and we were able to get him off all those drugs by the end of it. So he wasn't on any drugs. And so we just used what we needed to help maintain and sustain the body until we allow the body to rebuild itself so it can sustain itself. And so when I'm working with individuals who are in those situations, we kind of leverage it that way. and we work to a place, and if their intention and their goal is to be off the medications, okay, we can get you there. But we're gonna do it gradually. Some things you could say, okay, yeah, we can wean this person off within a few days or so, but others, based on the half-life of the medication and the effects that it has, what the mechanism of action is for that particular drug, you have to be more mindful with it. You have to kind of titrate down, for that person before they can just come off of it. So it just depends on what the situation is. It's a case-by-case basis, because when I work with someone, I work with them as a unique expression that they are. There is no cookie cutter approach, if you will. You're looking at someone's health. It's always a unique journey for each one of us. So we just look at the circumstances in which they are needing to work with, the medications they're on, and what we need to do with the body to begin to rebuild that vitality, rebuild that strength and that health, so the body is able to sustain itself without the assistance of these medications.
All right, man. So we only got a couple of minutes left. You got
So would you say that the approach, one of the best approach when you start talking about holistically healing, is not necessarily to have one doctor, is to have a multitude of doctors, because each one might be more experienced in one aspect than the other, and use that to culminate? Or would you say that?
That can be tricky, because most times, most people have multiple doctors, and and they find themselves in actually really worse conditions because these individuals are not communicating with each other.
Okay.
And one doctor may know something about the patient that the patient is not readily or open to discussing with the other physician. And so there can be a lot of misinformation at times. And so typically what I recommend to folks is you find someone who can pretty much assist you all across the board. That's why I chose naturopathic medicine, because it gave me the greatest capacity to work with the individual from, again, going back to natural law, going back to the innate wisdom of the body, where conventional medicine is not taught that paradigm or that philosophy of understanding. They look at the body more mechanistically, as a machine that I got to go in and tinker with, and it's compartmentalized down to a particular system, cardiovascular system, the pulmonary system, nephrology as far as the kidneys are concerned, or dealing with the gastrointestinal tract, whatever their specialty is. And they don't understand that this is a whole being here. The body doesn't recognize itself as a heart or lungs, a set of lungs or a set of kidneys. It recognizes itself as a whole organism that is occupied by a consciousness that is expressing a divine spirit here on this planet. And it responds in kind to that consciousness and the spirit that's occupying the space. And so when there is an imbalance in any aspect of self, it influences all aspects of who you are as a whole person. And so if you're dealing with a physician who does not take into consideration all of who you are spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, socially, in your relationships, how you're engaging in the world through what you call your work or your contribution, and how your environment is impacting you, and all those things are not taken into consideration when they're assessing you, they are a derelict in their duties, in my opinion. And so having multiple people out there giving opinions and not looking at you as a whole person and getting a full clinical picture. When I mean by clinical picture, how you show up spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, socially, through your professional world and in your environment. That's the clinical picture. And then from there, I can then look at and discern what patterns are showing up to why you're in the state that you're currently in, based on how you are being in this current state and the choices that are being made from that state of being. And from there, we can then begin to change the necessary things that need to be changed based on those patterns that are creating this physical expression that you're seeing in your body that may be showing up as an illness, but it also is impacting you from a mental and emotional standpoint, impacting your spiritual connection, the inspiration that you can receive in life because of the body not operating at its highest capacity. So you can't receive at your highest capacity. And then obviously that's going to impact your relationships, how you contribute in the world with your work, and also influence how you can manipulate and change your environment. So those are the things we have to look at when we're addressing anyone concerning what we call an imbalance within the physical form. And unfortunately, we're in a current health model that does not take that into consideration. Everything's compartmentalized. You come to, if you got a mental issue, you go to the psychiatrist or the therapist. You got a heart issue, you go to the cardiologist.
Mhm.
You got lung issues, you go to the pulmonologist.
They work on their own, but without everything else.
Then they work on their own, and all they'll ask is, what medications are you on from these other doctors to make sure that my drugs don't interfere with that drug, and that they will work in a sense together. But the plethora of side effects that comes from, and many times this cocktail of death of all these pharmaceuticals that you're now taking, sets your body up to just continuously break down over time as it's trying to filter out and detoxify from these chemicals that are not being introduced on a daily basis to quote unquote sustain your life, but in essence is preventing you from making a full recovery. Because again, the body doesn't work in compartmentalization, it works as a whole.
All right. Good information. It's 5:03. I know you got to go. You're in Belgium.
Yes, sir.
Thanks
Yeah,
for
man.
a good conversation, guys. Next week, I haven't decided what we're going to talk. If y'all got an idea about next week, but you know what happens? We just flow and we just start.
We start going all types of directions, but I mean, we kind of came back into what needed to come into, though. Yeah,
it's all connected, man. Like you were saying, Ahmed, it's all connected, man. You could talk about what was going on with your daughter at school, and that still impacts her health and the health of the family because it's all connected. And so the environment plays a crucial role in our well-being. And so, like you indicated before, Ahmed, when you were saying that you're in a toxic environment, stressful environment, like the impact that has. And then what's really deep, this is really deep, you guys, is that, okay, they did a study on Holocaust survivors, right? And these are people who actually went through the camps in Germany back during the 40s. They had, the ones who survived, they had children, and those children had children. And what they were seeing is that these children were still suffering from post-traumatic stressors in their lives as if they had gone through the trauma themselves. What they had been told was the stories from their parents and their grandparents, and that was internalized. Their imaginations began to create images of the suffering of their family members, their loved ones, and that began to internalize within their selves. And they start actually having stress responses as if they were actually going through that stuff. And this is how generational traumas can be passed on. And so
used to someone's advantage.
Yeah, and it can be leveraged to someone's advantage, precisely. And so, like in the case with your daughter, like if your daughter was, being like, abused and chastised and threatened in that environment, in though she's the one physically experiencing that in that real time and space, as her father, once you come into awareness of that, that's going to impact you physiologically and biochemically.
Definitely.
And so, and so that's how we're connected. And so it doesn't really matter what we talk about within the human condition. It's all interrelated. It's all connected. It all plays out in the physiology and the biology of who we are as human beings.
It's like the monarch butterfly. Everything is innately passed down. And I tell people that it's the same thing with us. But what it is the fight is to disconnect that, or to be able to speak the narrative as to what you're going to pass down based on what you're saying. So you keep pushing in that narrative. You're a victim. You're a victim. You're a victim. Going down generations. You're a victim. Your mindset. Your mindset is you're a victim. So it can be used for good and bad. It's like I say, science can be used for good or manipulation.
That's our problem. That's one of our problems as a people. We're still operating off of old stories, and that be our next conversation. How we allowing the past stories, which we know from what I've been showing people, that a lot of that stuff ain't even true. What they've been saying. So
that'd be a beautiful conversation.
Right?
Yeah,
so
I think so for sure.
About that, what we're doing to offset that, not allow it to, determine how we are right now.
And it all goes down into this health. It all plays a role in our health. So
it does, man. Because when you look, because you think about Okay, forgive the language here, brothers. But you think about the African American
Right.
health disparities and health conditions, high blood pressure, kidney disease. These are all stress related, conditions. Obviously, there's lifestyle stuff associated with this as well. Choices and decisions we're making about our lives and how we eat and these kinds of things. But from a cultural standpoint, I never forget. There's this doctor, this sister. Y'all haven't read her work or listened to her stuff. She was really big back in the '90s. I bought this book back then. It's called Yurugu, spelled Yurugu, by Dr. Marimba Ani. And she said something in a lecture. This is actually Akeem. She used to come to She came out to Mr. Rita's out there in Columbia off of Two
Right.
Notch, and she gave a lecture out there. And I think this was like back in like '94. I think it was like '94.
Mhm.
And she said, culture is the immune system of a people.
Mm.
And I didn't understand it. I was like, what, 19 at that time, 20. So I didn't really get what she was saying. I was like, culture is the immune system of a people. I was like, So as I went on with my life and education and ended up in medical school, and I started studying immunology and learning how our immune systems are actually more correctly to be qualified as our defense systems of our bodies. Start understanding that we have this innate immunity, and our body's constantly, this immune system is constantly going around, or this defense system is constantly going around, assessing every cell and everything it encounters to see if it is self or non-self. If it's categorized as non-self, they bring holy hell against that entity, be it a virus, bacteria, cell, it doesn't matter. They're going to bring the business to take it out.
Mhm.
And so when the immune system can no longer recognize self, you end up developing what is called an autoimmune condition, where now the immune system starts to attack the organs that are actually of the body temple of the organism, and now starts to break down these healthy cells and see them as non-self. And so when I started thinking about that, and I went back to what the sister was saying, I was like, we've been told such a story about ourselves. We've allowed another invading culture to engage the system, broke down the defenses, where the culture is no longer able to recognize itself, and it's taken on the attributes, characteristics, and qualities of another culture. And now, because of that, attacks itself inwardly and just begins to destroy itself, as an autoimmune condition would destroy the body. And the sense of identity is so profound to the physical form. When one loses a sense of his or her identity, the body doesn't have a directive manual by which to govern itself and navigate through life. And these people will be more susceptible to all kind of mental conditions, but also physical conditions, as far as showing up as disease. And so when we are allowing someone to tell the story for us and to dictate the narrative that is told over and over again. And I was thinking about this the other day. I'm domiciled here in Belgium. Everyone here is rooted in their culture, rooted in their nationality. They know who they are. They're all Belgians.
Right.
And if I became a citizen here of the nation, I wouldn't be classified as an American Belgian.
That's why I'm a Belgian.
I'm just a Belgian.
Right.
And I was just thinking about this quote unquote African American thing.
It's just joke. That's a joke all by itself, because African, you got countries in Africa,
Yeah.
So you're Libyan, you're Ghanaian, Ethiopian, Egyptian. I mean, that just saying that is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
You're not going to go over to Africa. Are you African? No, I'm Libyan. This
Yeah,
is
I'm Nigerian, I'm South
Mhm.
African, I'm Kenyan, Ethiopian, etc. No one's gonna be saying I'm African. And so what's deep is we've allowed others
Mhm.
to qualify us
Right.
as sub-American, because you're not even American, you're African American.
Right.
You're sub-American, you're a subtype. So by definition of you being classified as an African American, you do not have the same rights to the land, rights to all that's afforded an American, because you're actually a sub classification to
That's
the
right.
original
You're not even
Americans.
because it's a made up term. You're nobody.
You're nobody. Yeah. It literally is a
Classifying
made up term.
something that
Yeah.
doesn't exist. It's made up. To
Yeah.
and the sad part about it, they use people that look like us to promote it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
They pushing that narrative harder than anybody else.
Yeah, and this is the thing about it too, man, with that. Why are the only people who look like us that are in America have their Black leaders or their African American leaders?
Yeah, we the only ones.
I don't see any other culture that makes up that landmass. They don't have, none of them have these leaders.
It goes back to being trustees. They're the trustees to keep us in a certain box.
It's called the boule.
That's line.
It's called
advisors to the king.
Keep
to the king.
Right. Keep our mindsets always looking away from who we really are.
Yeah.
They took the so-called intellectuals and put them in an organization because they made these intellectuals look like they're the ones that could speak for the people, but these intellectuals ain't nothing but sellouts. And their whole mission in life is to keep you victimized and feeling victimized and staying where you at and staying in your place while they can reap any rewards that their zaddies and their daddies allow them to have. And it's called the boule. And so many people that you see today are part of that, the boule. And that boule is real.
I think there's people who are part of it knowingly and unknowingly because they're following the narrative.
I can agree with that.
The reason why they have to do that is simple. We're the gods of the planet. A lot of people, Akeem, what are you talking about? Yes, you will not go that far to keep a person down if they didn't have the power.
Right. Everybody else was just physical.
You don't do that. It's just this particular group. You're constantly bombarding them with negative imagery, negative image of false selves. Bombarding. Why? But at the same time, you feed off of them. Through their, you put all your businesses in their neighborhoods. And, everything is really marketed to us. Either us as men and women. We spend all the money in this country on things. We're the number one consumer, yet the less we don't own much as a people.
No, you're by design consumers.
Right.
Which brings your stress level up, which brings your health down. Once again, back to
that's it. Exactly, bro. You can't escape it, man.
You can't escape it.
You can't escape it. It's all tied, man. So whatever you're doing, it's going to impact that.
It goes back to recognizing who you really are. That's why I tell me, hey, you're God. I say it. Why? Because it's better than saying the other stuff they've been saying about us. Why? Yeah. What's wrong with me saying that? And I can bring out all of the sacred text that says that. All your
absolutely
gurus of the past have come in and said that, right? And where did those schools of thoughts come from? Our cultures. No other group of people created the religions on the planet. All of the religions we have is created from our culture. They're just remixed and respun to fit the narrative, that we're following today. But the roots started with our people. But unfortunately, right now, our mindset is, a lot of us are so asleep, we can't believe that. We have the power
Mm.
to change it. And then, like you said, if you believe you're gonna die, you're gonna die. If you believe you're gonna live, you're gonna live. So all of these other things, even the herbs that you take, is only aiding in your belief in it.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
that's the beautiful thing about it, because whether it's powder, pill, or potion,
Right.
everything you put into your body temple, you put into your mouth, which is still, when you put something in your mouth, it's still not in your body. It doesn't get into your body until it's absorbed, either through the venous portal system, going to the liver through the blood, or through the lacteal system, going to the lymphatics.
Mm.
That's when it enters into the body. And all these things are doing or acting as a catalyst for the promotion of life or the degradation thereof.
Right.
And so, and that's even with food. So foods, herbs, pills, powders, potions, you name it, all have side effects, for better or
Yes.
for worse.
You take too much of them.
Yeah. And so you, as the steward over this vessel, through self-governance, have to be very discerning about what you allow into it,
Mhm.
that begins to make up the structure of it. But just as important, if not even more important, is your self-governance and stewardship over what you allow to enter here, that which you call your mind.
Right.
Because
That's
that's
where the real
what's
power
going to ultimately determine what you allow into this, the physical form.
Right.
Facts. Man, we
Great
can start
conversation.
conversation. We can start topics all over again and keep this going.
Oh, brother, yeah.
Go.
I'm trying to keep him.
I think he was trying to get us off 20 minutes ago.
Hey man, yeah. Well,
Oh,
I think the people need to hear that, man. So
right.
we had to give it to them.
Yeah, it's good. Good.
Yeah.
All right. All right. I guess
Cool.
are we let me before are we done now? Are we
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
We got topics for the next couple of weeks. We bring them back up.
Okay.
And get
All right,
soon.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
everybody. Peace, man. Y'all
All right,
have
peace.
a good
Peace.
one.
Yo, be
Thanks.
good. Get some rest, brother.
Yeah, definitely will, man. Y'all do the same.
right.
All right, peace.
Okay.
All right, peace.